Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching my interviews here at the Louisiana State Capitol. With me in this interview is State Representative Gabe Firment. Representative Firment, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Good to be with you, William. I'm sorry we hadn't been able to get together earlier. We've been trying all session.
It's been a busy session. But before we start, I like to tell people who listen, because people listen to me all over the country, and I talk about things in Louisiana. I use this because it's my backyard basically, and I say that because legislation that people might see in other states happens all over our country, and the best way to fix our country is to start in our own state. You've got some legislation we're going to talk about last that I think people are hearing all over the country, but we're going to cover some of your bills and then go into a little bit more depth on that other one last.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, here we go. You got one that is it's a HB 14. It let's look at it. Controlled substances provides relative to Schedule 1 of the Uniform Controlled Dangerous Substances.
Right. So HB 14, what it does is it essentially bans kratom. So kratom is actually a leaf from Southeast Asia that is becoming more and more common here in the United States. It's sold in a lot of gas stations as a capsule or as a powdered form. Some people use it in a tea. But I actually filed this bill because my sheriff in Grant Parish asked me to. We had a young man in Grant Parish pass away. His grandmother came to a police jury meeting that I attended, and this legislation sprung from that testimony that I heard that night. Grant Parish and several parishes across the state have banned kratom on the local level, so we thought that would be good to try at the state level. Now, there has been a lot of resistance to that bill.
I sat in on this committee and I saw all the lobbyists for the kratom industry, in the room.
Right, and we did get it out of committee, have not moved on the House floor, and I'll tell you really the reason behind that. There seems to be some potentially limited medicinal use for kratom. A lot of people swear by it. Now, we also know that it affects the same brain receptors as opioids, so there's certainly a lot of abuse with it. But what I have sort of focused my efforts on is working with Representative Jonathan Goodo and Senator Caleb Kleinpeter. They also have bills that address the kratom issue, so we're working towards a legislation that would focus on regulating kratom, doing things like raising the age to 21, allowing parishes to ban it at the local level if that's what they choose to do. There's some things with packaging and testing, quality control, to make sure that if we are going to allow kratom to be sold here, it's going to be safe and it's not going to be available to our children. So did not expect that bill to get as much attention as it has, but that bill is not going anywhere. I have more or less turned my attention to helping those legislators with their bills.
And what's interesting with the kratom, like you said, I never knew it was be such a hot issue. I mean, I go in stores and you can see them selling it at the counters and stuff. So your legislation would exactly regulate it in a way and raise the age limit. Is what you're saying.
My bill would have completely banned it. Would have added it
Okay.
to Schedule 1 of the Uniform Controlled Substances Act, which essentially would have made it illegal to possess or sell.
Okay.
So looks like we're going to find some middle ground, or at least we're moving in that direction.
Okay.
So, it's too early to tell what's going to happen with kratom, but I'm confident we are going to end up in a much better spot than where we're at now.
Much better spot, meaning for children who could buy it and maybe have had harm done to them, or better in a way where there's some middle ground that gets a little bit more regulated.
All of the above. Yeah.
Okay.
For children, for adults who may want to consume it, even for anybody looking to buy it online, there needs to be some safeguards there, that what you're buying is safe, it's not contaminated. There's dosage instructions and just some safeguards in place.
Because that was some of the stuff I heard in the committee, that there's some bad kratom on the market.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, look, you're really taking a gamble. If you go in there and buy it, you don't know where it came from. You don't know what sort of testing has been done to ensure that it's of a high quality and it's safe. So like I say, it turned into a controversial bill that I was not expecting, but I think the result is going to be that people in Louisiana are going to be safer ultimately.
Get a better product and it's safer.
Yes.
I got to tell everybody, sometimes there's legislation that people agree or don't agree with, but the reality is that sometimes a discussion needs to be had to make things safer or more effective or protect the people in our state.
That's right. And look, and I think that's certainly been the case with HB 14.
All right, HB 43 provides for non-recurring lump sum settlement payment to certain eligible retirees.
Yes, so that is a bill that I put a lot of work into. I actually had some retired firefighters come to me from my district last session. They had not received a cost of living adjustment since 2015. We know how inflation has impacted folks, especially older people like retirees, and a lot of our retired firefighters were hurting. So last year we passed a study resolution looking at ways to potentially give a cost of living adjustment to retired firefighters. So House Bill 43 came out of the recommendations of that study committee. And look, it was a joint effort, really a team effort. We had the Board of Trustees endorse the plan that we ended up with. The Professional Firefighters Association endorsed it. It would have given, it will give retired firefighters or their beneficiaries up to $2,500, a one-time stipend. Not really a cost of living adjustment, but it's something that would, significantly help some of these people who are hurting. So it flew through the House, flew through Senate Retirement Committee. Right now, for some reason, it's tied up in Senate Finance, and it's a little unusual because normally you would see a bill recommitted to appropriations on the House side, to finance on the Senate side. If there was a state appropriation involved, there is no state appropriation involved on this legislation. It's entirely funded through the system. The employers are the ones who are funding this one-time payment.
It's not state money.
They're in agreement. It's not state money. Right now it's tied up in Senate Finance.
So how can this be political? It sounds to me like it's getting political when this is something that helps firefighters, helps our community, and it's not state money.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to comment on the politics. All I know is we've got a lot of hurting firefighters, and this would help a lot of them, a lot of widows, a lot of widows of retired firefighters who, look, that's a dangerous job, and
absolutely.
And it's
and
we know the life expectancy is much shorter than other segments of the population. So I sure hope we can see it through to the finish line.
And thank you for not getting political. I even though I do a lot of political interviews, a lot of these interviews, I just like to have the facts out there and talking about that.
Yeah, well, and look, maybe that bill has just been overlooked in the Senate, and they've got good intentions. We'll see. We're down to about 7 days now.
There's a lot of other bills going on. HB 110 provides relative to fortified roof endorsements.
Yeah, so that is a very important bill. The fortified roof program, there's several different components of it. So one component is the legislature has decided to fund this fortified roof grant program. So we will make grants available to people to replace their roofs and to install those roofs in accordance with fortified standards. So fortified is the Insurance Institute of Business and Home Safety, and they have discovered, and it's really just common sense, but they've discovered if you can keep that roof intact, the damage to the home is going to be significantly minimized. So if you keep the wind and the water out of the interior. So we're going to fund the grant program. What my bill, HB 110, does is it requires insurance companies to offer an endorsement to homeowners that simply says, if we purchase this endorsement and your roof is damaged and requires replacement, we will pay the additional cost to bring it up to fortified standards.
Okay.
So, it doesn't sound that impactful, but what I like to tell people is think about this. If even half or even a third of the people whose homes were damaged by these past few years of hurricanes, if they would have had this fortified endorsement, we'd have 200,000 or 300,000 roofs across the state of Louisiana fortified. And so, once you batten that roof down, once you know that decking is not going anywhere, the shingles are adhered to the roof properly, that roof is going to withstand even a Category 3, Category 4 storm. The damage is going to be much less severe. It's attractive to the insurance industry because they understand that they've got resilient structures that are going to sustain less damage. So, look, it's a win-win. That bill sailed through both houses. It's been sent to the governor, and certainly expect that to become law.
And what I like about this is, one, you're thinking about people's homes, you're connecting some dots, you're saving some money. Where's the money come from on this?
Oh no, so it's completely optional. So the only mandatory part of this bill is it's mandatory that the insurance company offer to the homeowner this endorsement. Now, there is a premium, in exchange for this endorsement, but it's going to be very minimal, and the benefits are potentially very great. So yeah, no sort of state expenditure.
This legislation doesn't cost the state any money. It basically puts a tool or an arrow in the quiver for the insurance companies to help people lower their insurance rates, helps protect homes, and gets people back in their homes quicker after storms, if the case may be. I know I went down to Grand Isle and Terrebonne and Lafourche after Hurricane Ida, and I can tell you there are a lot of houses that had the fortified roofs already, and they didn't look like they had been touched.
That's right. Look, it's night and day. If you've got a fortified roof and a non-fortified roof sitting side by side, it's going to be a world of difference in the extent of damage to those two homes. And so another piece of that fortified package, and it's not my legislation, but we've also passed legislation. I believe Representative Willard has the bill that will require a mandatory premium reduction for any fortified roof. So, with the grant program, with my bill that offers the fortified endorsement with the mandatory premium reduction, look, 15 years from now, South Louisiana especially is going to look totally different than it does now. It's going to be much more attractive to insurance companies.
Amazing what some smart legislation can do. HB 126 authorizes individual income tax deductions for contributions to catastrophic savings. What's that one about?
Okay, so that is kind of a unique idea. I'm not moving that legislation this session. Talking with the bankers, there were concerns, and we want to get it right. So what that would do is it would allow homeowners to invest money in a catastrophe savings account. So on a tax-exempt basis. So you put money into this account, tax-free, and it would be there in the event that your home is damaged by a storm. So this would especially be beneficial for high deductibles, and we know that's kind of the trend that we're seeing higher deductibles. After all these storms, insurance companies, reality is they're not going to insure some homes without a high wind and hail deductible.
This is like a medical savings account for houses.
Exactly. So yeah, it's
a great idea.
It's modeled after a health savings account. If that money is withdrawn to cover catastrophic expenses, it would still be on a tax-exempt basis. So Alabama, South Carolina, and I think Mississippi have this program now. Has not been extensively used, but what I think we're going to do is work with the banking industry to alleviate some of their concerns over the administration of these accounts. But look, especially for Louisiana with the our proclivity to be struck by hurricanes, this is just another piece of the puzzle to prepare us
fix some things
to weather
in Louisiana.
these storms. Right.
HB 183 prohibits the assignment of certain benefits.
Yeah, so you may have heard, some of your viewers may be aware of the situation we had after Hurricane Laura, after Hurricane Ida in southeast Louisiana, where predatory attorneys teamed up with unethical contractors and essentially tricked homeowners into signing what we call an assignment of benefits contract. And unknown to most of those homeowners who signed those contracts, they were signing away a lot of their the rights that the insurance policy gives them. The right to sue, the right to collect payment, the right to negotiate the claim, those rights were being transferred from the policyholder to the contractor. Well, it's been a big scandal with this. The most prolific perpetrator was this McClenny Mosley
Heard about
law
that. Okay.
firm, and yeah, they're in a lot of trouble. I think they've been essentially disbarred. Are prohibited from operating in Louisiana. Commissioner Donlan has issued a $2 million fine, I think. So what House Bill 183 does is prohibits the use of those assignment of benefit contracts. So
I got you. So basically, if somebody signed a contract that doesn't allow them to get the funds or doesn't allow them to sue, and they feel they need to, this bill will allow them to be able to sue regardless of that contract they signed.
well, sort of.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of. So this assignment of benefits contract was the tool that these unethical attorneys and contractors were using, really to usurp the right of the policyholder to do those kinds of things. In fact, what we found with the MMA firm was that oftentimes lawsuits were filed on behalf of the homeowner, and they didn't even know about it. So it really was just a predatory arrangement that benefited the unethical attorney, benefited the unethical contractor at the expense of the homeowner. So it was just, look, this was a really big deal in Florida. It was part of the part of what contributed to Florida being in even a worse situation from a property claim situation than we are in Louisiana. So very, very important piece of legislation. Made it through the House, made it through Senate committee. We're waiting for it to be heard on the Senate floor. So I think it's a great bill. There hasn't been any objections. So hopefully it'll become law.
So we got House Bill 463 prohibits certain procedures. Well, we're going to go through 463 here afterwards. I think, and we got 648. That's another one, a companion bill. But let's do the other ones first, and then we're going to handle 463 and 648 last. 444 expresses condolences to the death of Randall Aaron Fletcher.
Yeah, that was just Mr. Fletcher was the
a local bill.
Yeah, local bill. Yeah.
You got 55 memorializes Congress to pass legislation allowing for tax-advantaged catastrophic savings accounts.
Yeah, so we sort of touched on that. So
yeah.
this HCR sprung from House Bill 126, the catastrophe savings account. So what it does is it urges Congress to pass legislation at the federal level that would allow for catastrophe savings account. There's been an effort to do that for many years, has not quite made it across the finish line, but just a great idea. And we think that if we could get it passed at the federal level, it would incentivize legislation at the state level, like I introduced. So just another piece of the puzzle.
I love this. I absolutely love this. You've got 17 requests that the State Department of Education conduct a study and submit a report to legislatures relative to school lunches.
Okay. Yeah. So just real quick, that a young man, a sixth grader, Andrew O'Neill, at Grant Junior High, one of my constituents, his teacher asked me if I could come listen to a report that he put together, and it was a very thorough report on the quality of school lunches, or the lack of the quality of school lunches. And so Andrew identified a problem. I've got kids that age who agreed with Andrew's findings, and Andrew actually came down and presented the bill with me in committee. And so it just asked the Department of Education to look at school lunches and to make sure kids are getting food that tastes good, that's nutritional. And look, we know that for some kids, this may be the only good solid meal they get all day long. So
this is just a way to improve school lunches.
Look, we don't want to waste food. We want kids to eat it and to be healthy and strong.
202 memorializes the United States Congress to pass bipartisan legislation allowing for tax exclusion amounts.
Okay, yeah, so that's just another urgent request. You know, we're urging Congress to stipulate that these fortified roof grants would be tax exempt, so that people who receive the grants aren't penalized from a tax basis.
214 recognizes June 18th to 25th as Amateur Radio Week. I like that one now.
That's I've got some ham operators in my district, and they've got a big week coming up, and a big event out at Bulow Lake in Pineville, Louisiana, that I hope to attend. So this is just in recognition of
I might have
what
to
they
get
do.
up there and see that.
Yeah, are you a hammy?
I'm not a hammy, but I appreciate the hammies, but I have a lot of friends who are hammies. Are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But I've got a lot of friends too. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
So we're going to talk about 648, 463. We'll do I guess a brief on it. It's a prohibits certain procedures to alter the sex of a minor child. 463 was the substitute adopted that prohibits certain procedures to alter the sex of a minor child. Is this an anti-transgender bill?
Oh, absolutely not. So the bill is 648,
Yeah.
House Bill 648. All it does is makes it illegal to perform chemical or surgical sex change procedures on minors. Very simple. That's all it does. It's very narrowly focused. This is legislation that every state in the South has passed. We know that many very progressive European nations who pioneered some of these pediatric sex change procedures, they have completely backed off of this, and
Off of allowing it?
off of allowing it, yeah, because the more data becomes available, the more we see just how harmful these chemical procedures and the surgical procedures are. So it's been very controversial. And
What's the on the controversial side? What's the answer to the argument that I've heard where if parents want to chemically alter or surgically alter their children, or a child really feels that they're trans, or a child really wants to be transitioned, they want to have the sex change operation. There's an argument that those people are suicidal if they don't get their reassignment surgery or chemical alterations, however it's said. If I said it the wrong way, excuse me. What's the argument that says, hey, look, not before 18?
Yeah. So a lot of different ways I can answer that. So I'll start by saying this: no one has the right to harm a child, and the scientific data, systematic research, irrefutably proves these are harmful procedures. We know that puberty blockers are irreversible. They're essentially chemical castration. Starting kids on puberty blockers just is so detrimental to their health. It affects bone density, brain development, the development of sex organs. So typically that would be followed by cross-sex hormones, estrogen.
Yeah.
If you're a male, testosterone. If you're a female, again, just devastating physical side effects, cardiovascular issues, high risk of stroke, not to mention the things it does to your body. If you're a woman, it widens your shoulders, you grow facial hair. There's just changes, physiological changes to your body that are not reversible. And look, nobody believes more in parents' rights than me, but we also know that it's impossible for a child under 18 who we know has not matured mentally to be able to make these decisions. It's impossible for a child to give informed consent to these kinds of harmful procedures. Look, we don't let kids buy alcohol, cigarettes. We don't let them
Go to a strip club.
vote, gamble, go to the strip club.
Yeah.
Why in the world would we let them make these decisions that will affect them the rest of their lives, including, affecting their ability to have kids, and that we know will result in irreversible physical and often mental side effects.
So, go ahead.
Yeah. So also, there's absolutely no proof, no hard scientific data that would indicate suicidality. The rate of suicide is any less when kids go through this so-called gender-affirming care. Mental health outcomes are not improved. In fact, there is ample evidence to suggest just the opposite, that mental health and suicides are increased even when we allow kids to go through these processes. So think about this. What other mental health condition is it where we allow kids to self-diagnose and then we follow their lead? And that's essentially what we're doing. Is the therapist, the mental health provider, the doctor is affirming the child's diagnosis that he's born in the wrong body. So just at so many levels, it's wrong. It doesn't make sense. We've got the scientific evidence to back that up.
So this is not anti-trans. It's not anti-freedom. It's not. It's more pro-parent. One last question on this bill. Do you think that there's any sort of happy medium that maybe something could be offered to help children and parents put off that decision until they're 18 years old? And maybe more help, more psychological help.
No, it's very simple. We know that 85 to 90% of the kids who undergo professional mental health counseling and what we call watchful waiting, that this condition, gender dysphoria, resolves on its own. It naturally desists with time. So good mental health counseling and watchful waiting are the approach.
Maybe give the boys more testosterone, the girls more estrogen as a way to help them out, and counseling. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no. Now, look, I think the chemical interventions
are off the table.
Off the table.
Regardless.
Yeah, so look, kids essentially outgrow this. Yeah, the puberty blockers, the cross-sex hormones are damaging to a child, very damaging to a child's body, and not backed by scientific evidence.
So one last question for you. And we got another interview coming up here. I've heard there might be legislation. I'm making this up, by the way. Would you support legislation that would require the legislators to update their pictures on the legislative site on a regular basis, so we always have current pictures?
Yeah, as long as I can Photoshop it to make me look younger, I guess that's okay. No, I'd be all for that. Yeah.
Representative Firment, thank you
Really
so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Everybody else, share the video. Thank you so much.